If you ever thought that infamous mysteries like the Bermuda Triangle or the ghost ship Mary Celeste were the ultimate limits of the unexplainable, then perhaps you've never heard of the Dyatlov Pass, where the icy wilderness doesn't just consume human bodies, but traps their souls forever. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other terrifying mysteries that have never been told. Because after hearing this story, you might never dare to step into a forest again, even in your dreams. People still talk about the disappearance of 9 students during a fateful expedition in 1959 as a tragedy that science can never explain. But there's something that was never made public. A diary. Incomplete. Part of it was torn to shreds, the rest stained with dried blood and claw marks, as if its owner had tried to write something while screaming. It isn't a narrative, it's a confession. And no one knows how it ended up locked inside the room of a high-ranking Soviet officer, thousands of miles from the scene. But what if I told you that I was the one who read it? The story begins with a copy of those diary pages. I'm not sure I can fully trust every word in it, because clearly the writer was gradually descending into madness. But I know that what they faced wasn't just cold snowstorms or wild beasts. It was something older than the winds of the Urals, silent as falling snow, but as fierce as the souls of thousands buried in the deep woods, still unrested. They set off in early February, when the cold could freeze blood in your veins before you even realized it. The group consisted of 9 people, all final-year students majoring in engineering and extreme sports. They were experienced, well-prepared, excited, and proud to take on the harshness of nature. They laughed, took photos, wrote in their journals. They believed they would return. They didn't know this journey wouldn't just be the last time they saw the sun, but also the moment when their memories would be stretched through pain and darkness until no one could tell what was real and what was hallucination. The first day in the forest, everything was fine. Light snow fell, the sky was gray, but there were no signs of the disaster to come. One of the group members, named Kolya, was the one keeping the journal. His first entry said he felt something watching from the forest, but he quickly erased it and replaced it with a joke. Probably a squirrel in a fur coat. But anyone who's lived long in that region would know no squirrel could survive that weather. On the second night, they set up camp on a mountainside. The wind howled. There was no light except for a faint flicker of fire. One of the group woke up in the middle of the night because of the crunching sound of footsteps on snow. But when he opened his eyes, he saw no one. He looked outside and only saw a trail dragging deep into the forest, as if someone had been pulled, not walked. But the next morning, everyone was still present. No one remembered anything. No one, except Kolya. He wrote that he found dried blood on his collar when he woke up. By the 4th day, things began to crack. One group member, Yura, suddenly vanished. They thought he had gotten lost. They searched for 3 hours in the snow, shouting his name until their voices gave out. But there were no footprints, no trails, as if he had evaporated into the air. That night, they decided to turn back. But when they tried to navigate their way, the compass spun endlessly. Every direction pointed north. They walked for another day, hoping to find an old trail or a nearby ranger station. But by late afternoon, they realized they had returned to the exact spot where Yura had disappeared. In despair, another member, Lena, began to scream and speak in gibberish. Kolya wrote in his journal that her voice didn't sound human. It was muffled and guttural, like an echo from underground. That night, Lena vanished. No one heard a sound. No screaming. No footsteps. Just a single small barefoot print pressed deep into the snow before it vanished into the cold, white void. Another member, Sasha, began laughing through the night. No one could sleep. Kolya noted in his journal that he heard Sasha whispering to someone, calling out names no one had ever heard before. "They'll spare us if I offer a heart," Sasha said, then laughed, then cried, then slit open his own stomach with a dagger. They buried him in the snow. No one said a word. They knew that what was hunting them wasn't an animal, nor was it human. Kolya stopped writing for 2 days. When he resumed, his handwriting was trembling, the ink smudged with blood. "We can't get out. Every time we try to leave the forest, we end up back in the same place. The tree struck by lightning, the pile of black ash, the claw marks on the bark. No one remembers why we even came on this trip. I'm starting to forget my name. There's a section that's been torn out. That part covered the final night. When the rescuers arrived, they found 9 bodies. Some were missing eyes, others had no tongue, some had their lungs torn from the inside. There were no signs of bite marks or wild animal attacks. But every body bore the same expression, pure terror, as if they had seen something indescribable. So why 9 people? Why the Dyatlov forest? And why was the journal torn and later discovered in the room of an officer who once investigated the site? There's one thing I haven't told you. That journal, not everyone can see it. I found it in an old file box at a warehouse that once belonged to the Soviet intelligence office. They said no records about Dyatlov were ever kept there, but the notebook is real. It's lying under my pillow now. Every night I hear faint scratching on the wooden floor, steady, as if something is slowly rising from beneath the ice, and I've started to forget what I've written during those sleepless nights. Every morning I find new lines in the journal. The handwriting isn't mine. I think I brought it out of the forest. Not the notebook, but it. If you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe. Who knows, if I disappear one day, maybe you'll be the next to find the journal. Ever since I brought that journal home, I've been having nightmares. In them, I stand in the middle of an icy pine forest, the smell of rotting snow, the sound of whispers echoing in my head like voices from some faraway place where language no longer exists. I see shapes through the white mist, faceless, eyeless, mouthless, just motionless figures standing still. But every time I turn away, they get closer. And then I wake up, always at exactly 3:17 a.m. I think I'm being haunted. But then, things started happening that I could no longer blame on imagination. One night, while I was sitting and rereading old diary pages, I heard a soft laugh coming from beneath the floor. My house doesn't have a basement. That laugh didn't sound human. It carried no joy, just something awkward, distorted, like a corpse trying to imitate the behavior of the living. I froze, staring into the darkness where the bedroom door hung slightly open. Then, a small piece of paper was caught by the wind, flying out of the notebook, drifting to the ground, spinning a few times before resting at my feet. On it was a line I swear I'd never seen on any previous page. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. I began digging deeper into the Dyatlov incident. I found military maps erased from public records, suppressed forensic reports, and even personal letters from one of the first officers to arrive at the scene. In a short letter to his wife, he wrote, "They died of fear. No, you don't understand. They weren't killed. Something dissolved them from the inside. And you must never speak of this to anyone, not even in your dreams." Every time I got closer to the truth, I felt like I was being watched. The security cameras in my house often glitched at night. Once, I discovered a blurry frame captured at exactly 3:17 a.m. where a figure stood in the middle of my living room. No eyes, no mouth, no face. I decided to return to the site. I needed to know what had happened. I couldn't stand being trapped in the dark without answers. I took leave from work, bought a plane ticket to Russia, and hired a local guide to take me to the Ural Mountains. The guide was an older man named Mikhail. When I told him why I wanted to go to Dyatlov, he stayed silent for a long time, then simply said, "If you truly want to die, go ahead, but I'm not burying your body." We began the journey in skin-cutting cold. Each step into the snow left prints that looked as though they were being pulled into the earth. I brought the diary with me, now damp and carrying a strange stench, like rotting meat, even though I kept it sealed in a box. As we neared the place where the 9 had camped, Mikhail refused to go further. He stood there, staring into the void ahead like he was seeing something I couldn't. "I'm not going in there," he said. "I lost my son in these woods. He thought he could understand what happened too. He came back, but he wasn't him anymore." When alone, the white snow stretched endlessly, the trees silent like stone pillars guarding something forbidden. I reached the campsite, the place where it all began. There I found strange traces no one had ever reported. A circle of stones lay neatly arranged in the middle of the forest as if shaped by human hands. In the center was a pile of cold ash, and beside it were markings etched into stone. Not Russian, not any language I had ever seen. I sat down and opened the notebook. At that very moment, the wind stopped. All sound vanished, and then snow began to fall, not from the sky, but from below. I looked down and saw the ground cracking open, the snow being pulled into some invisible void. And from within, I heard whispers. No, voices. Not just one, but 9, 10, hundreds of voices speaking at once inside my head. They called my name. They urged me to keep reading. The notebook turned its pages on its own. The handwriting was no longer Kolya's. It was the handwriting of each member of the group. Each one wrote short passages, laced with delirium and terror. One entry from Lena said she saw her mother standing in the forest, holding the old doll she had as a child, calling her home. Another from Sasha read, "I saw myself dead, but still breathing. And I saw it. The thing without form. Just a thinking shadow." The last page was a photograph. I had never seen this photo in any official document. 9 people, their faces blurred, standing in a row in the snow, and behind them a tall, shapeless, dark figure. Below the photo, written in blood, "We are not dead, we just haven't been allowed to leave." I closed the notebook, stood up, and I realized I was no longer there. No stone circle, no snow, no sky, just a gray void where sound couldn't echo and darkness seemed to slide across my skin. I saw each member of the Dyatlov group standing, staring at me. No faces, but I knew it was them. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. They didn't come closer. They just stood there, unmoving, and behind me, a freezing breath touched the back of my neck. I woke up in a hospital. Mikhail said he found me unconscious in the snow, mumbling incoherent words. But the notebook, it was gone. The police found nothing in my backpack. No photo, no papers, nothing. I came back, but I'm not sure which part of me remained intact. Because every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., I hear a faint scratching beneath the floor. I no longer dream. I see them while I'm awake. The 9, standing at the foot of my bed. No faces, no eyes, never leaving. If you're still here and still hearing my voice, please remember this. There are doors that once opened can never be closed again. I'm one of those who opened them. Don't make my mistake. And if one day you come across an old notebook, leather-bound, stained with blood and smeared ink, don't read it. Just burn it, if it's not too late. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep uncovering the mysteries that history itself tried to bury. And if I disappear after this video, believe me, I was never far. I'm just listening. From the other side of the forest.